It's time for your Low Country real estate market update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Good morning, Charleston. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. Thanks for joining me this morning. I know it's a little early on a Saturday, but we are going to talk all things real estate on this program for the next hour. And we are live in the studio again this weekend. And I should add as a caveat, which is something I've been neglecting to do on my Saturdays when I do this live, we rerun the show on Sunday at 10 o'clock. So if you're listening on Sunday, we are not live in the studio, so do not call the studio. But feel free to reach out to me. I can be reached at 843-345-1273. That's my cell. Feel free to call or text anytime if you have a real estate question, concern, or if there's something I can help you with. Or feel free to go to my website. I've just revamped that site a little bit. We're still working on it, but it is mobile friendly, so you can use it on your phone, iPad, so on and so forth. That website is listingsincharleston.com, and you can search the MLS, take a look at everything I've sold, which, again, we are updating. And then if you're considering selling your house, click on the Sell Your Home tab. You can learn a little bit more about my 59-day, 4.5% commission guarantee. Very simply, I'll sell your home in less than 2 months, or I'll sell it for half my commission. Again, we're live in the studio, and this weekend I have Bill Sandvig of Movement Mortgage with me. Good morning, Bill.
Good morning, Brian.
Bill, I heard that you were the number 5 lender in the nation in May for, was it volume or transaction?
It was volume, yes, thank you.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations. Rockstar. So we're going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff this morning, and if there's anything that we say, anything that you want to weigh in on, feel free to give us a call in the studio. The number here is 843-556-1250. 843-556-1250. Let me tell you what I have planned for this segment, or for this show. The first segment, I want to talk about just some real estate news. If you're like me and you go on Google and you just type in real estate news or market updates, so on and so forth, this has been all over the internet for the past few days. Zillow, which we all know at this point, household name at this point when you're searching for real estate, is trying to buy Trulia. And Trulia is the other big dog when it comes to online real estate searching. And so if we look at this idea of an acquisition and a merger, Zillow, with a market value of close to 5.8, close to $6 billion, and Trulia having about a $2 billion market value, together collectively in June, they had 85 million views on their website. That is huge. And collectively, they represent 89% of all online traffic, which is just an enormous amount of online traffic. And so there have been a lot of speculative comments and suggestions and articles about what would happen if Zillow purchases Trulia and becomes even larger than they already are. And if you're one of those people that have listened to this show over the course of the past close to 2 years now, you know that I have some fairly strong opinions on Zillow and Trulia and just online marketing in general. And so I wanted to weigh in on what I think could happen if Zillow were to acquire Trulia, and then what that means for you and what that means for the real estate community. So first of all, and I want to, of course, tie all this into you because it's a big thing in the realtor community, but I want to have it kind of apply to you, the listener, the potential homeowner, the potential home buyer, so that there are some things you can take away from it. So let me first explain that Zillow, as they've grown, they really have kind of changed the way they do things. And let me explain it this way first. Zillow can be a free website to market homes on through something called the IDX share of our MLS. I can post my properties for sale in the MLS. It's automatically going to feed to several websites, and through some of the other marketing programs that I have, it automatically posts on Zillow within 24 hours of my listings hitting the MLS. Again, it can be a free service to real estate agents. So a lot of real estate agents take advantage of that and the fact that they don't have to pay any money. Well, here's what you need to know. Especially if you have your home for sale right now. If you have your home for sale right now and your real estate agent is not paying their membership dues to Zillow or Trulia or any of these large websites for that matter, whenever a buyer inquires about a listing, Bill, let's say that you're searching for real estate online and you find a listing and you click on that button that says inquire and you submit your information.
About a particular property.
About a particular property.
Right.
If that real estate agent, that listing agent is not paying their membership fee, your information doesn't go to them. Your information goes to a real estate agent like me that not only pays my membership fee, but I also pay to receive leads in certain zip codes where real estate agents don't pay their membership fees. So the tie-in here is that if you're a seller and you have your home listed for sale, you should know whether or not your real estate agent is paying their membership fees, because it could be that they've laid out this extensive marketing plan and they've got all these websites that they market on, but if they don't have the ability to capture the interest of a buyer,
how are they going to actually sell your home?
Exactly. They're going to talk to a real estate agent like me, and frankly, I'm not going to know as much about that house as the listing agent. I'm going to answer their questions regardless, but it's not as good as having the listing agent sell that particular buyer on your home. And I think it's a really important thing to note, because real estate agents kind of, all they do is they say Zillow or they say Trulia. And those buzzwords say, oh, wow, great. Well, that's fantastic. I'm glad we're on those websites. But you have to understand how these websites work.
Now, if you're a paying member, that won't be the case. They'll actually come directly to you.
Well, the listing agent, if they're not paying their membership dues, will not receive that lead. That lead will go to another real estate agent that's paying for those zip codes. That's why when you go on Zillow or you go on Trulia and you see all the real estate agents on the right-hand side, those are the agents that are paying to receive leads in that zip code. They are not the listing agent. In fact, it will say listing agent underneath that person's name, so you know that you're contacting the right person. But that's how it works. So as Zillow has grown, they've kind of changed the way they do things. First, it was, hey, just pay us, $100 a month. That's your membership fee. That's the top level membership fee. And anytime someone inquires, you'll get those leads. Then it started to change. As they gained market share, things started to change. Then they wanted to start to charge you for mobile leads versus just regular website leads. And then they wanted to say, all right, well, now we're going to split it up even further, and we're going to differentiate buyer leads from seller leads. And if you want seller leads, then we're going to charge you some more. So as they continue to grow in market share, their cost to the real estate agent grows depending upon what kind of leads those real estate agents want to receive. So here's the concern. If Zillow were to buy Trulia, obviously they have this huge monopoly on the online real estate market. They're already kind of pulling on tight strings here. Wallets are tight among the realtor community right now. We've just seen over the past 12 to 18 months recovery in our market, and real estate agents are just getting back to the point where they're starting to make some decent money again. They've got money to put back into their business. And I see this time and time again, especially when I go on listing appointments where I'll lay out my marketing plan, and I'm very transparent when I meet with a seller on what I do and what it costs and how I'm different from most real estate agents. And one of the big things that I talk about is online real estate marketing. We go through this and we talk about just between Zillow and Trulia alone. I mean, it's a high dollar amount that I pay on a monthly basis to generate leads for myself and my team and my buyers and my sellers. So if Zillow were to buy Trulia, first of all, the idea is that the cost could potentially go up because Zillow is the dominant player in the online real estate market. But here's something else that I think people need to consider. And again, we're talking about Zillow and Trulia online marketing and how this could potentially affect just the real estate population in general for realtors and then for buyers and sellers. If you have any questions, give us a call, 843-556-1250. We're here in the studio. But here's another concern. Right now, the MLS that we subscribe to provides that information to these types of websites. So in other words, I as a real estate agent input the information into the MLS. The MLS then pushes that information out to hundreds of websites. The concern is that, especially among real estate agents, is I'm giving the MLS that information. That's my information. Yet I am now having to pay potentially an exorbitant amount of money to Zillow to get people that should be contacting me already about the listings that I have. So in other words, I'm being charged to get the leads that I should already be getting. So people have a certain view that Zillow is the devil and the Zillow, and it's, in my opinion, it's a necessary evil. If 85 million people on a monthly basis are looking at real estate on these websites, it makes sense to be there and to be present and to be top of the list. So that's why, I've got several dozen reviews on Zillow and Trulia, and people contact me just because they see that I'm a trustworthy agent and I've done a lot of business on these websites. Other agents say, hey, I'm either not going to pay that money, or I don't believe in investing in these types of websites or marketing programs, because at the end of the day, if a buyer's out there and they're looking and they find my home on Zillow or Trulia, then maybe they find me, maybe they don't. Maybe they find another real estate agent, and hopefully that real estate agent shows my listing.
I guess the concern is as Zillow continues to grow, real estate agents in the community won't feel like they have an option. They'll feel like they are forced into spending money at Zillow, because if they don't, then they're going to be so far behind the curve that they won't even have hope of getting a call on that listing. Right.
And I have a lot of newer agents that join our company that come and talk to me about, hey, Brian, how is it that you're generating this level of business? If I have some money to spend, where should I spend it? And it always comes up. Do I spend money on Zillow? Do I spend money on Trulia, Realtor.com, so on and so forth, to generate leads? And my advice to them is, I think that before you start throwing money at just marketing programs, you really need to master the basics of our industry. Call people that you know. Ask them for referrals. It doesn't cost you anything to work your database and say, hey, who do you know that's buying or selling a home that I can connect with? Real estate agents have become so incredibly reactive to all things that they forget to be proactive. They forget to just reach out to people and say, hey, who do you know? How can I help them? But I think what's going to happen is, especially if Zillow acquires Trulia, is that you're going to see this big separation between the real estate agents that sell a lot of homes and the majority of real estate agents, which are only doing a few deals a year. I mean, the majority of our realtor population, not just in our market, but in any market, I think the average salary is like $28,000 a year for a real estate agent. Mm-hmm. So you've got this huge separation. It's the old adage, 20% of the real estate population does 80% of the business. So I think what happens, especially if prices are going to rise, is you're going to see even further separation between the top agents and everybody else.
Because back like in the early 2000s, everyone starts to become a real estate agent when they get their license and they're just trying to sell one or two homes.
Right. So how are we tying this back into the listener is the question that I always ask myself. And I think it's twofold. Number one, I think now you understand how these websites work. And if you have your home listed, or if you're planning on listing your home, you need to ask those questions. Are you going to pay your membership fee and get those leads? Or is it just going to be on there and we're going to take the chance that hopefully another agent shows your property? The other thing to take away from it is, if you have your home listed for sale, are you getting your listing agent to show your own home, or is it all just other agents showing your property? The reason I invest in such an expensive and elaborate marketing plan for my homes is so that I have the ability to show my home as many times as possible. I want to be the one that works with that buyer if they're not working with a real estate agent yet, because I'm the one that knows the most about the home.
Right.
So anyways, I think that there are some other things that I could speculate on that might happen. I could see at some point Zillow becoming a brokerage, and rather than charging monthly fees, they charge referral fees of 25%. That could be a game changer. I also think that Zillow could potentially become an online brokerage, and rather than just providing information, they have online satellite real estate agents that complete the entire transaction for you without you ever meeting them. Kind of like a virtual real estate agent company. Wouldn't that be interesting? Well, anyways, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, We're going to talk about some headwinds to the real estate market recovery that I think you should all be aware of. We're going to talk about new construction. We're going to talk with Bill Sandvig about some things. So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Find Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues next on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. Now, the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues on Charleston's Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, Charleston. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Thanks again for joining me. I am joined live in the studio this morning by Bill Sandvig of Movement Mortgage. If you have any questions for us, feel free to give us a call, 843-556-1250. That's the number here in the studio. If you have any questions for me, anything that you'd like to discuss, private in nature, you're considering buying or selling a home, feel free to reach out to me personally anytime throughout the week. My number is 843-345-1273. Or you can visit my website, listingsincharleston.com, and look at everything for sale on the MLS, read some testimonials from past clients. And if you're considering selling your home, click on the Sell Your Home tab. Learn more about my 59-day home sale guarantee at 4.5% commission. When we left, the first part of this program, I was talking about Zillow and the idea that if they acquired Trulia, that means some things in our industry could change. But the big takeaway that I want the listeners to have with all of this news is that when you sit down with a real estate agent and you're going to hire them to market your home for sale and sell it, you need to ask some questions that really are designed to make sure that that agent is doing everything they possibly can to sell your home. You've got think about it this way. You've got the standard real estate agent that's going to rely on the MLS, and he's going to have your home, or she's going to have your home on some websites, but he's not going to have this big marketing budget to where if people are actually interested, they're going to come to the listing agent. They're just going to go to some random agent in the Tri-County area. So the takeaway is hire an agent that's going to do everything they can personally to sell your home. And that comes from a marketing plan designed to capture the interest of buyers and show their own listings rather than relying on other real estate agents to bring them the buyer. That's a big part of the job, and we need to market to real estate agents as well, but you should be hiring a real estate agent that's doing everything they can to create the best opportunity possible for you to sell.
Passive or active? I mean, it's that simple. Active selling, passive selling.
Right. Again, live in the studio, any questions, give us a buzz, 843-556-1250. Over the past several months, I've been talking about how well our real estate market is doing locally. And it is still doing phenomenally well. We're talking about major price increases in the majority of the areas of Charleston, reduced inventory, properties are selling in less time, they're selling for more money. Basically, any metric that we use to measure the health of a real estate market is continuing to improve and slant more and more toward a seller's market. There are some things that I want you to be aware of, however, that I think are going to determine how our real estate market continues to either progress forward and improve or slow down a little bit. I see some headwinds to our continued recovery, and I just want to let you know what I think those are. Number one, sluggish new construction sales. I was on TMA Friday morning, which I usually am on around 7:45, 7:50, and we talked about how nationally new construction sales were down like 8% from the month prior, and it was across the board. So her question for me was, what's going on? Is this a sign that we might not be recovering as well as everybody thinks we are? And it's a very thought-provoking question. One of the things that I said is that it's too early to tell. Looking at one specific month and determining whether or not that garners a real market trend, I think is certainly not enough time. You need several months to establish a trend and determine whether or not the market is truly headed in that direction. But the first thing I want to talk about is sluggish new construction sales. I pulled up the MLS this morning, and I looked at everything that is under contract, everything that's sold, everything that's on the market that's either being built or has been built. And here's some interesting numbers. right now, everything that's available for sale is about 6,000 homes, 6,100 homes, okay, in the Tri-County area. 15% of what's available is new construction. So we've got about 1,000 new construction homes. Everything under contract right now, which represents about 3,200 homes, 33% of new construction is what's under contract. So we've got about 1,000 homes in our Tri-County area that are under contract, that are being built, or that are newly finished and are just waiting to close. And then if I look at the sales, 15% of what we've sold this year is new construction. We've had 7,700 closings so far this year, which is a huge number. That's 1,000 a month, over 1,000 a month. And that's the first time in our market that we've really seen that consistently since, pre-bust years, 2003, 2004, parts of 2005, we were on that trajectory. But our market really has recovered from the standpoint of just closings. There are a lot of people buying real estate out there. But 15% of what has sold is new construction. So the question is, are we providing opportunities to increase supply and return to normalcy? Or are builders hesitant and just not putting out the product that we think they should be putting out in order to take advantage of this seller's market? And so we need to ask ourselves some questions. Number one, who are the people that new construction builders are targeting? Are there opportunities for financing in those areas? And then what are we really basing this real estate recovery on? Is it just the fact that there aren't enough homes, or do we need to look deeper than that? Are we experiencing increases in wages? Are we just experiencing increases in jobs in general? How is the economy overall looking right now? And as well as our market is doing, what we need to understand is that a true real estate recovery cannot be fueled just by reduced inventory. It has to be fueled by those fundamental things that create a better economy and create opportunities for people to afford a bigger home, a more expensive home, create opportunities for first-time home buyers to get that job at a good wage and buy their first home. And we're getting there, but we're not quite there yet. So just some interesting things to think about as far as new construction is concerned. It sounds to me like, based on all the information that I've read and some of the new construction builders that I've spoken with and some that I represent, they're doing all they can to get product on the market. But the big builders in our industry have all the access to capital that they need, but it's the smaller builders. It's the people that want to go and put up an 8-home little cul-de-sac in Mount Pleasant, or build 3 or 4 spec homes at a time. It seems to me like there's just a lack of access to capital for that. I have several people that if we could get them financed, they'd put a bunch of real estate up, but they can't. What's your opinion on that, Bill?
I know that the banks are still tight in construction lending. The biggest question I get from an investor is, are you doing construction to perm? Are you doing these type of products? And the construction to perm product, for what a small local builder might use, is still much tighter than it was 10 years ago. So you need equity. You need to have 25% down. Slowly, the banks are starting to lighten the requirements. You're starting to see some small local banks get a little bit more risky on their lending. So there is some more new construction homes, and smaller builders are finding access to money. But that's really, really new. I mean, that's just the last 6 months, last 6 to 9 months, there's been that change. So, I mean, that's a sign right there. 2 years ago, nobody was getting a construction to perm. It was a conventional mortgage or nothing.
Right. From what I understand, and just my pulse on the market, is that builders are really going after that move-up buyer, that kind of middle of the market to the upper end of the market buyer. They're not focusing so much on the first-time home buyer, because it sounds to me like first-time home buyers, and I've talked about this a bunch on my program as well, first-time home buyers just don't have access to capital, or they have student debt that they still have to pay off. There's a lack of jobs for them. What they're earning, they're not keeping enough of it to be able to afford a home. They're not saving money for a down payment. They're spending what they're making. There's all these small little problems that inevitably affect the way our real estate market is going to recover. And my opinion on it, which is the opinion I think of most people, is that until we have some real economic growth consistently, we're not going to be able to fuel a true real estate recovery. And we're not going to see this huge spur of new construction homes across the board and across all price ranges until that happens. Just my opinion. Anyways, we're live in the studio. We're going to take another break. If you have any questions, want to weigh in on a topic, feel free to give us a call here in the studio, 843-556-1250. When we come back, we're going to talk more with Bill Sandvig of Movement Mortgage on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned for more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
The Big Talker, WTMA.
Expert news and views on the Low Country real estate scene. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. I'm your host, Brian Beatty. Again, we're live in the studio this morning. Any questions, any comments, anything you want to weigh in on, we'd love to take your call. The number here in the studio, 843-556-1250. And I'm joined again this morning by Bill Sandvig of Movement Mortgage. We've got some really interesting new topics to talk about in the mortgage market, something that I think could really have a profound effect on our market. So, Bill, you were just talking to me off the air about this brand new, would we call it a product? Would we call it just a guideline?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, mortgage guideline.
So here's one thing that I know is that it has been a struggle for some sellers to find a property that they're really interested in and purchase it without first selling their home. Mm-hmm. The idea that we're in this seller's market is great for the seller, but when they go to buy something, they're met with a seller that's in the same position they are. So if they make an offer that's contingent upon the sale of their home, it can be very challenging, especially if you're in a market that's hot. So as an example, I told listeners this last weekend. One of my best friends is looking for a home. We're looking in downtown Charleston, and we have made about half a dozen offers on properties. Most recently, we made a full price offer, and all we asked the seller was that they give us 15 days to put their existing house under contract. They were going to drop the price of their house way down and get it under contract, and then we would move toward purchasing the home that they really want. The seller wouldn't budge, wouldn't take it, wouldn't even counter, which was a shock to me. But it really kind of helped them understand that you're in a great position as a seller, as a buyer. Sometimes things are very challenging, and we need to be able to think of some outside of the box ways to get you that house or get into that new house and take advantage of, in some cases, low prices and low interest rates. Yeah,
it's a very common question real estate agents and buyers ask me. They'll say, can I qualify with both payments? Can I qualify with both houses? Because one, they want to have that luxury of having a little bit of overlap between the two homes when they move. They don't want to have to cut the price of their house if they're selling to just get into their next home. And so now there's an opportunity in a recent guideline change directly from Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae that could possibly allow for people to carry both mortgages, carry both homes, and it can also be a plan for a path to becoming an investor. So I want to talk a little bit about how you could build a rental and investment portfolio as maybe a first-time home buyer with not a lot of assets, and take time and over years establish a small little army of rental homes. So if you're a first-time home buyer, not a lot of savings, and you're looking to get into a conventional loan, you got to put 5% down. So if you put 5% down on a house, we know that you're going to have to pay mortgage insurance. Well, in today's improving housing market, mortgage insurance on a conventional loan can go away in as little as 2 years. So I say to people, if you put 5% down and the value of your house goes up 4% this year and then 4% next year, and you've made your mortgage payments, at the end of 2 years, you're going to have over 20% equity in your house. All you have to do is pay for an appraisal and get rid of your mortgage insurance after 2 years. So that's a significant drop in your monthly payment. Now you're thinking about moving up. You're thinking about going and buying a new home. Well, in the past, If you did not have experience as a landlord, experience renting out property, it didn't matter if you had a lease on the house you were leaving or if you were planning on renting out the house that you were leaving, that income would not count. The rental income would not count.
So in other words, you'd still be on the hook for all the cost associated with your primary residence and, of course, the cost of the home that you were going to buy.
Right. So you would have to be, in order to build a rental property by moving, you would have to be able to afford both mortgage payments.
Okay.
Unusual for most homeowners. So now, a recent change, you do not have to have experience. You do not have to have 2 years or multiple years of landlord experience. And as long as you have an active lease on the property that you're moving out of, and when I say active, that means it can be executed sometime in the future. It just has to be a lease. You can now count that income as qualifying income, and it can completely negate the mortgage that you have on your other property. That allows for you to use your regular income to go qualify for a brand new primary residence. And there's one little rule that people that are doing this and people that are buying homes need to be aware of. When you write that lease, only 75% of that lease is going to count as income. So they call that the vacancy factor. So 25% of that is going to account for potential vacancies in your property. But if you have this plan to buy primary residences, wait a year or two, let that equity build up, and then move on to your next one, in 6, 7, 8 years' time, you could be looking at owning 4 houses, never had your income go up, bought the exact same $200,000 house 4 times, and have never had those other houses impact your debt-to-income ratio, which would impact your ability to qualify for your next home.
It's a very interesting strategy. It sounds, to me at least, very, very similar to some of the strategies that were employed back in 2004, 5, and 6 when our market was going gangbusters and equity was on the rise by double digits and people were leveraging other properties to buy additional properties. And then as soon as the market crashed, they were potentially on the hook for the total cost of ownership for all those homes. And they couldn't use the lease as rental income, right?
Right. I mean, there's some differences here. The guidelines were very relaxed 10 years ago, and you could get 110% financing. So what happened was people were finding themselves overextended. I've heard stories of people taking the exact same $200,000 and buying 11 homes. 11 homes with the exact same $200,000 using equity lines, 110% equity lines, and just going because they didn't have to show income.
Wow.
You know, it was just, if you had a 760 credit score, let me give you some money. So it's a little bit different. There's definitely a more conservative approach here. This is more of a slow build. I mean, anybody can do this. Anybody that is responsible with their money, has decent credit, you know, and is making $60,000 a year, they can go buy a $200,000 home, sign a lease after 2 years of being in that property with only putting 5% down, assuming we have good growth, and they could do this over time. And you look back in 10 years, and all of a sudden you've got, you know, a whole bunch of rental properties that you've a retirement plan. I mean, basically.
Exactly. Very interesting stuff. We're in the studio with Bill Sandvig of Movement Mortgage. Any questions, give us a call, 843-556-1250. If you want to learn more about this program and the ability to keep your existing home, rent it out, and have that not count against you when you're going to buy another home, give us a call. We're happy to answer your questions. Let me ask you a different question, though, Bill, because I own investment properties. I work with a lot of investors, and this is certainly a new strategy that I think many people will employ. You've obviously got 2 schools of thought when it comes to real estate investments. Pay cash, no risk, or leverage. Get a mortgage and have that tenant pay your mortgage for you. What do you think makes more sense right now, to put a large chunk of money down on a real estate property, or just put down what's necessary if you're going to get a mortgage? Is there any benefit to putting down 50% versus 20%?
Well, with interest rates as low as they are, I mean, 4%, 4.25%. That is so historically low. Now is not the time to be dumping money into avoiding a mortgage, because historically 4%, 4.25%, that's almost free money. The average rate of inflation over the course of history, 3.3%. So you're putting money down to save yourself less than 1% over inflation. So your money can be better spent almost anywhere else. If I have an investor that comes in and says, I'm going to pay cash, why would you pay cash for one house when you could buy 3 houses with that exact same money and have 3 properties and a mortgage, as long as you're structuring smartly? And that's why it's so important to talk to someone like you, someone like myself, when you're doing these kind of things. As long as you're structuring smartly and protecting so that your qualifying ratios won't fall. And that's what we talk about, making sure that on your books, when you're talking about debt and ratios, we want to make sure that you're able to continue to go and continue to buy real estate by using and understanding some of these rules, like the vacancy factor. And so we can talk about making sure you put down enough money so that your payment will never count against you in qualifying for your next property. And so so it ends up, the property looks like a net zero on your qualification sheet. And you can do that forever. You can do it endlessly. And it doesn't matter how many properties you have, as long as you do it right, it's not costing you anything in the eyes of attaining your next mortgage.
Very interesting stuff. I tell you what, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about this. And then I'm going to ask an interesting question. Are you a real estate agent's best friend, or are you their worst nightmare? So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA. We'll be right back.
Have a real estate question? Ask Brian Beatty. Send him an email, lowcountryhomesales@gmail.com. That's lowcountryhomesales@gmail.com.
WTMA.
Now, here's more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Thanks again for joining us this morning. We are live in the studio. This is our last segment. If you have any questions, give us a call, 843-556-1250. Of course, I'm joined by Bill Sandvig of Movement Mortgage. Any mortgage-related questions, give us a call. We're happy to answer. We just talked about this new program, this new guideline, where you don't necessarily have to sell your home in order to purchase another one if you plan on renting it out and keeping it as a rental property. And the basic rule of thumb, from what it sounds to me like, is as long as you have a lease secured, you can count 75% of that total lease, apply it toward the cost of ownership of your current residence, potentially negate that debt, have a rental property, and buy a new home. It's a very interesting strategy if you're planning on putting some rental properties in your portfolio and you just don't have a bunch of additional assets or liquidity to do it.
And it can be a great idea in this market. I mean, we all know housing prices are going up, so why not have housing prices go up on 2 houses you own rather than 1?
Absolutely. One thing that I always want to do on this show is just say thank you. I've had a lot of people call over the past month or two, and it's always kind of shocking to me to hear that I actually have people that listen on a recurring weekly basis. And so every show, I just want to say thank you to those that entrust me with their real estate needs and services. Always happy to help in any way, shape, or form. I've had multiple conversations with people that just general knowledge stuff, just ways of helping them, ways of clarifying things. I always tell people that I'm more than happy to tell you what your house is worth at any given point in time. Just give me a buzz or go to my website, listingsincharleston.com. Tell me what I can do to help, and I'm always appreciative of that business. On that same kind of token, I want to talk about this idea of, are you a real estate agent's best friend? Are you a good client, or are you their worst nightmare? Are you a bad client? And I'm sure that you and I could sit here for an entire show and tell stories about successes and failures and everything in between.
Not me. I've never had a bad client. So,
oh, really?
Yeah,
well,
only perfect good clients for me.
Yeah, well, you top number 5 in the nation for May. So I guess you're just rocking and rolling. No time for bad clients, huh?
I wish I wasn't talking out of the side of my mouth there.
Here's my idea of just a great client. And it sounds so simple, but I did say on my last show last weekend that it seems to me like transactions are becoming more and more difficult. More people are getting cold feet, and there's a variety of reasons why deals are starting to fall through outside of things like inspections and financing and so on and so forth. And I think at the end of the day, it boils down to setting the right expectations with your clients and just having those conversations. And again, what I tell clients is that I'm not here to tell you what to do unless you want me to do that for you, in which case I will. But I'm here to offer suggestions. I'm here to share my knowledge and market insight, discuss trends, and position us so that collectively, as a team, we can accomplish your goal. It's not really so much about me. As an example, my homes have sold on average since the beginning of last year in 36 days. But I'm not going to go to a seller and say, I'm sorry, I can't work with you because I can't sell your home in 36 days or less. It doesn't matter what my goals are. It matters what their goals are. And if we can have a good conversation and be open and honest and set the right expectations, then we're going to be successful. And that's, to me, what a good client is. There's somebody that is open to taking advice at key times. They're open to asking those questions. Hey, Brian, what would you do in this situation? They hold the agent accountable. I think that's another big thing is they allow the real estate agent to lay out a plan, and then that client says, hey, how are we doing with that? I think that it's a two-way street, and your real estate agent, of course, has to be able to walk the walk other than just talk the talk, which is something I see all the time. And then, of course, the last thing that in addition to smaller things, of course, but people that are willing to refer an agent to other people that they know, like, and trust, I think is a big deal and a true testament to whether or not that real estate agent is truly doing a good job. On the flip side of that, worst nightmare clients. I've got not a lot of stories, but I have a few, and it's the type of situation where, gosh, you just hope you never have to work with that person again. But the idea of a bad client, a naughty client, is somebody that doesn't listen, somebody that doesn't take direction, somebody that wants to run the show, somebody that micromanages the process, somebody that questions everything, somebody that just frankly doesn't listen or that kind of breaks the rules. And I haven't had many of those clients in my career, but I did have an unfortunate situation earlier this year where I represented a seller. My seller was a fantastic client, one of the best clients I've ever had. The buyer, however, was represented by an agent that was pretty timid. He wouldn't stand up to the buyer. And the day of closing, the buyer did a walkthrough, and they decided they didn't want to buy the house. And they said, we're going to buy the house, but you have to come down off your price $18,000 because they wanted new granite countertops. They wanted to paint the house, and they wanted to do some things. And I think it was either the buyer getting cold feet or the buyer just taking advantage of the situation because the sellers had moved out and they needed to sell. And it was just an awful situation that I hope I never have to be a part of again. But I think, I guess the takeaway for everybody listening is to just consider the idea that we as real estate agents work very, very hard for the money. We're compensated at closing. We don't make a penny throughout the entire process. And it's all designed, or should be designed, to accomplish your individual goals. So if you're working with a real estate agent that seems slanted in their idea of what the goals are, if they're more worried about themselves than they are about you, that should be a red flag.
One of the things that I get is the last time I got a mortgage or the last time I bought a house, and I'll say, well, when was that? It was 2004. Well, the last time I did this was yesterday. So let me...
Right. And obviously you try not to beat your chest and say, well, hey, I've sold, hundreds of homes over the past few years. How many have you sold? That's obviously you're not going to say that. But I guess just the takeaway is that this is a challenging market. Trust your agent. They should know what they're doing. If you're getting the idea that they're not, then feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help. 843-345-1273 or listingsincharleston.com. Thanks again for tuning in to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Have a great weekend.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show next Saturday morning from 8 till 9. Contact Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. 843-345-1273.